Hello, my name is Bill Clark, Chair of the Salem County Chamber of Commerce Business Education Committee. We bring you this program thanks to our sponsors, Atlantic City Electric, PSEG Nuclear, and Salem Community College. I'm honored to introduce our presenter. Christine Hooks was born and raised in Salem County and has remained here all her life. She is the proud daughter of a DuPont accountant who worked in Jackson Lab and a fiercely independent nurse who was the director of nurses in the Salem County Health Department. Chris is the youngest of 4 stubborn siblings and the mother of 2 beautiful and talented daughters. After being a stay-at-home mom for 8 years, she took keyboarding, Windows 3.1, and the principles of real estate at Salem Community College in 1992 and started her career in real estate the following year. Chris is now a broker, real estate instructor, and the new owner of the Pino agency, headquartered in Pennsville. She is in her 30th year as a realtor. Congratulations, Chris, on reaching this milestone and for presenting on productivity tips.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and I want to thank the Business Ed Community Committee, for allowing me to present today. I'm sure you've heard if you want to learn something more, then you should teach it to other people. So I'm not a productivity expert, but I am here to share what I have recently learned. I took a class called Insane Productivity. I actually listed that on the board for you. It's a wonderful course. It has 12 modules, and I took it with a group. We would meet every Thursday night at 7 and go over the homework and discuss it. And it had so many good tips that I've actually, what we say, rinsed and repeated it a few times. And this is probably the most of the materials based on insane productivity. So that's why I'm pleased, because this is helping me to learn it at a deeper level. So I want to start out by saying that I am very happy, and I'm going to congratulate you all for being here, because honestly, the invitation went out to the entire chamber, close to 400 people. So all of you in the room are the exception, right? I mean, it takes effort to get up and to get here this early in the morning. So I'm appreciative of your effort, because I did spend a lot of time preparing, and hopefully that will show. And, right, you did not wake up to be average. So I wanted to say today is a very special day. I didn't want to not talk about the fact that we're celebrating the 80th year of the Chamber today. That is the 14 founders listed, and I just couldn't not do a little bit of Googling to see what was going on when they met and founded the Chamber. So Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the president. The average house was about $3,600. The average car was $970. Excuse me. Bread was 9 cents a loaf. And the Congress had just passed a bill called the War Labor Dispute Act. And it gave Roosevelt the right to seize businesses if he felt that they were in an industry that was possibly going to do something to affect the war effort in a negative way. And I thought, well, that must have been something that these guys discussed. I mean, I can't even imagine that ever passing nowadays. And so they remained focused, and they got their project off the ground. And who would have thought that we would be here 80 years later based on their efforts? And I just think that's pretty astounding. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about that briefly. By the way, if you have any questions, any comments, I would really like for this to be interactive and not just a lecture. So anything that you may know that you think would help, just please speak up. And Bill has told me to repeat questions and comments, so help me to remember to do that for the audio. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about myself, and I chose these pictures because they were all meaningful to me. As you can tell, there's a lot of dachshunds on the screen. My family and I, we love to rescue dachshunds. We've rescued 6 so far. We've rescued other breeds as well, but they're our favorite. You can see my daughters. And in this picture, my dog and I have matching dresses. I want to make sure you saw that. We did a sausage dog walk. Our office supports Alex Lemonade every year, and that's my family with my independent mother and my accountant father and my stubborn siblings. And why I say fiercely independent is because when I was in 6th grade in 1972, the teacher asked how many of your moms work outside the home, and I was the only child to raise my hand. And I never forgot that. So she was definitely a trailblazer. And the middle picture, I love hats. That was my Kentucky Derby hat one year. I still have it. And so why I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself, Jason, you mentioned earlier you pay attention. And that's the first pearl I wanted to drop this morning, is how important it is to pay attention to our staff, to our teams, pay attention to ourselves as well. Because why we're here today is twofold. We need to examine ourselves first. So when we go through the material, I'm hoping that you'll first think about yourself and where you fit and how the information speaks to you. Then take the second step and think about your team members and, who's doing what, who can be helped with what information. And that's why I was happy that you said pay attention, because we have to pay attention to our team. We have to try to figure out what they need and what they're doing and what needs to be corrected and how are we going to correct it. What do we need to praise and recognize? Because as leaders, we probably don't praise and recognize as often as we ought to. So that can go a long way in helping the productivity to go up just with that one item. Okay, so we're going to get down to work now. Did I press that the wrong way? No, I pressed it the right way. So we're here to talk about productivity and efficiency. And so I want to just give you a brief overview of what to expect this morning. First, we're going to take a look at what is happening in the workforce and the cost of the average. It's just a fake number, but it's the cost based on the average wage and what these inefficiencies could potentially be costing you in your offices and in your businesses. I'm going to share a lot of statistics in the very beginning, which are quite sobering, and I promise you it will get happier after that, but that's part of, we have to figure out what's going on. And the point is, in looking at ourselves first and those statistics, and do they speak to our habits, because our staff and our team, they're watching us. They always watch us because we lead by example. So sometimes we have to look in the mirror and raise our game so that our example is spot on. So let's check ourselves first. As I mentioned, you do not have to admit that you get a cup of coffee in the morning and scroll on Facebook for 20 minutes. You can keep that information to yourself. But if a staff member is doing it and you want to talk about it, that's fine. So then we'll take a peek at the workday efficiencies and the cost, and then we'll cover 4 mindset quadrants. And that's where we're going to be evaluating what is the habit of that particular worker. What is their behavior on the job? Are they engaged, or are they already checked out when they walk in the door Monday morning? And then from there, we'll move into a brief discussion about our 3 brains. And last, we'll talk about the 7 habits. Alrighty, so 53% of folks check their email while they're driving. And that's been proven to be 6 times worse than drunk driving cognitively. So I thought I would hit you with that one, because that's quite shocking to me. And so 61% check email on vacation. Office workers check email up to 40 times per hour. 67% check their phones for messages, alerts, calls, buzzers, chimes don't even have to go off. and they'll just pick up that phone. Standing in line at the Acme, they just pick up that phone to see if there's something on there, even if they haven't received a notification. 75 of the people in this study admit to using the phone in the bathroom. We don't have to talk about that anymore. 89% of workers do not complete the top 3 tasks that they want to complete each workday because of distractions. So distractions are the biggest threat that we have. 69% of people cannot go to sleep without checking that inbox one more time. 43% get up in the middle of the night and check their email. 35% routinely check their phone before they get out of bed in the morning. And 38% check email at dinner time. So we've not only lost our minds, we've lost our manners. And I'm sure you can all think of times where someone has been extremely rude, right, with their cell phone. Oh, and texting while walking, taking selfies on a cliff. There's a lot of visits to the ER, right? There's fatalities. Have you done that, Bill?
Well, not necessarily that, but I can put myself in harm's way.
And Mr. Texting while walking.
Oh, okay, we're not quite ready for that. Wanted to make sure that I was up to speed with the slides. So there is a name now for this. It's actually considered a mental condition, and if I'm pronouncing it correctly, it's called digiphrenia. Have you ever heard that word before? Because I had not. I remember when I was in your shoes hearing these numbers for the first time, and it was like a gut punch, you know, to know that this is where our society is. And if you really want to get scared, there's a documentary called Social Dilemma. I believe it's on Netflix. It was so upsetting to me, I had to stop watching it because they talked a lot about the teenagers. Teenagers text up to 4,000 times a day, some of them. I mean, it's just really horrible. So each distraction in our world, on average, it takes 23 minutes and about 15 seconds to recover. It doesn't mean that you don't go back to work, but you're not engaged, you're not fully present. So you can imagine if someone is distracted or interrupted once every hour at their workday, it's no wonder they're not getting done their 3 tasks. So do you recognize yourself in any of this? You don't have to say yes or no. Do you recognize your team members possibly or your employees? So it's literally changing our brain, and it does have a cognitive impact. So potentially, possibly, it's destroying our creativity, definitely destroying our focus, destroying our productivity, and ultimately it could be destroying goals and dreams. So I would like to ask if any of you in your workplaces have cell phone policies. Has anyone taken that step?
We have a cell phone policy, but no follow-through.
Okay, I'm going to repeat that. So Jason said they have a cell phone policy, but no follow-through. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more? Like, who would be the person who would hold people accountable?
Me.
Okay.
And I'm on my phone.
He texts them to tell them to get off their phone.
But
Yeah.
I just know how it is
Yes.
to be there. And it's not the worst thing in the world. If somebody's on it constantly talking, if I just see him on it every time I walk by, it's an issue, it's gonna get mentioned. But there's no steps after that.
Mm. Yeah. Mike, were you going to say something?
Yeah, we're mostly courteous about it. I don't think we are deliberate about our refraining from the phone. My previous employee, in meetings, we had some very firm rules about phones being off and that we would allow for you to check every 30 minutes on your email. So we start meeting at 10:30. I'd actually set an alarm. Break time, you have 2 minutes to check your mail, and then we get back into things. But again, I don't think that worked terribly well either.
Anybody else? So Jennifer, you're in your office by yourself most of the time, so you'd have to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, and see, my challenge is that the work phone rings to my cell. A lot of folks through the pandemic only call my cell. And I've tried gently to say, please call the work line, but I don't wanna
Yeah.
put anyone off. So I pretty much answer whatever phone rings on my cell, and then I walk around the office while I talk to them. And I feel like I'm at least getting some exercise.
You're getting your steps. Well, let's go ahead and see what this costs us. So, personal calls, 1 per day, 15 minutes. I'm sure that's an easy thing to have happen in any workplace. I know in our office, one of my admin was, I'm going to say, really having a lot of personal calls. There were some things going on in the family. So I Googled, and $33.44 is the average pay per hour. So 58 cents per minute, 15 minutes is $8.36 a day. And then for the week, it goes up significantly. 58.52 feels pretty bad if you're the person in charge of paying, right? If you're the payroll. And then for the whole, I gave a 2-week vacation. So $2,926 for one. And what's to say they're not having 2 15-minute personal calls a day or more? Yeah, 15 minutes. I mean, I know I've seen 30-minute personal phone calls. So that's not fun. This is why I thought I don't ever want to be the broker. I never had to worry about this stuff. Since September 1st, I get a different feeling inside when I see someone on a personal call. So now let's take a peek at meetings and what goes on in meetings. I think Mike shared you have 20-some meetings a month?
Oh, yes.
A week.
And how many staff members do you have in your meetings?
Probably no less than 3 and no more than 20.
Okay. Well, I based this calculation on 4 employees at that average rate per hour. So the cost for an hour meeting, $133.76 each week. And look what happens for the year. So we're going to talk about how to address that. We have to have meetings, right? But we can be more efficient. We can tighten that up and have it be less costly. So we'll talk about that. That's one of the 7 tips. All right, so now we're going to move on to these quadrants. And the idea being, how motivated, how engaged are your employees? Are you yourself too? So there's 4 types of people. You can see the first type is unengaged. That's pretty easy to understand. So an unengaged person would never come to something like this, would never get up and be here at 8 in the morning. They probably wouldn't even come at 12 noon. They just don't have any interest, don't think that this is something that they need. The next category 2 is overmotivated underachiever. So the overmotivated underachiever I kind of love because they do everything. They read all the books, they go to the seminars, they buy the materials, they listen to the podcasts, they're watching the training videos on YouTube, but they don't implement. Or if they do implement, it's just a small thing and they don't stick to it. So they may be a little bit more productive or a little bit more successful. I would say that they have a good income, generally speaking, but they don't really rise above the crowd too much. And so the third category, overwhelmed underachiever. So this is the person that is doing so much that they are just, as they say, grinding it out. So they're doing everything. They're working a lot. They do get results. They're very consistent in getting results. But because they're so busy and so overwhelmed and not efficient, there's a cap of how high they can rise because you can't grind it out more than You know, there's a limit. There's just a limit. You have 168 hours in the week. So that person just needs some training to get them to have a different path. And then the fourth category, stunningly successful superachiever. So that's the category we want to move towards, right? So in my office, I have an agent named Vince, and he is stunningly successful superachiever. And so as soon as I heard this description, I knew it was Vince. So they get exponentially greater results than anyone else. They can have 3, 5, 10, even 50 times the results of anyone else. And they do it with using a lot less energy, less stress, less effort than other people. So how do you shift into that? We'll talk about that today as well. So what I want to say about Vince, excuse me, just to give you an idea of what that looks like, because I didn't have a Vince in my office for a long time. I've been managing the agents since 1996, and most of those years I was the highest earner. But Vince is in another stratosphere. So there's 63,000 agents in New Jersey right now, and he's in the top 1%. He's steady, he's disciplined, he's consistent, he's calm, he's very routined. So in the course of the transaction, he has 1 or 2 mortgage people he always uses, the same professional photographer, the same termite company, 2 title companies. He doesn't alter. It maybe sounds boring, but because he's so consistent, it's easy. It's that well-oiled machine that we often hear about. And the thing that really struck me with him, he does not get any more excited if his workday has 5 settlements than when he's doing paperwork. It's his job, because he did have 5 settlements one day. And I said, "Oh, are you going to go home and celebrate?" And he cocked his head to the side and he said, "Oh, I hadn't really thought about it." And I said, "Oh my gosh, you have to celebrate." And I said, "This isn't like a big day to you, is it? This is your work day." He goes, "Yeah, pretty much." And I thought about that over the weekend, and I thought, I think he's right. Like, yes, we need to celebrate and be happy about things, but that's what, in our profession, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to go to settlement. So it shouldn't be a rare occurrence, right? It should be steady. So he has really taught me a lot since he's been with us for 5 years. And so the greatest achievers in our society are like that. They are less stressed. They do have multiple vacations and hobbies and private jets. I mean, if you really look at Richard Branson and Elon Musk and all of the big high achievers, they have a lot of spare time to enjoy a lot of different things, right? They're not working 80 hours a week and workaholics. You know, they have beachfront properties and they go and enjoy the beach. So it's kind of nice to think about that if we just learned better habits, we wouldn't have to work as many hours or work as hard, and we could meet our goals, whether they're financial goals or just self-fulfillment goals, you know? So today, I want you to understand what is happening inside your brain. And then I want you to learn to identify and hopefully understand what is happening in your staff or your team's brain. And I want you to understand what is happening under your roof, whether it's the school or, you know, HD Young Insurance, Chamber of Commerce. What's going on under your roof? And I apologize, I don't know the name of your business, or I would have mentioned.
New York Life.
New York Life. So what's going on under the roof of New York Life? If you can sit back and pay attention, the way Jason mentioned earlier, we can learn a lot, and then we can tweak things and make things better. So we're going to learn strategies to engage your team. And when what they do is they're trying to sneak in some online shopping to get ready for the beach, maybe they'll think twice and won't do that as much, because we'll be able to teach them the big picture and how their life would ultimately be better, and the life of the business would ultimately be better. So you can absolutely change your life and change your fortunes and your futures and your family's futures and fortunes. And this, you can just absolutely change the trajectory of what is achieved. And it's tweaks. It's not always a big, huge thing. It can be a small thing. I mean, honestly, I used to think there was a big thing. I don't know if you guys felt like that when you think about your career and what you want to do. I don't know if that was just something how I felt, but I remember being in high school and thinking, oh, I'm going to do something big one day. So my antenna was up for a long time. I went to high school in the 70s. And I think around 2015, I learned that the big thing is really a small thing. And that's a story for another day. But it was like such an epiphany to me. And I feel like that's the same with these little hacks, with the productivity and the efficiency. It's little changes that we make and hopefully create new habits that can create the big thing. So how do you determine where your people are? You have to talk to them. You have to ask questions. Some of the questions could be just, how are you doing? What are your greatest challenges? Are you comfortable? Is there anything that you need? What are the 3 areas that you would like to experience growth on your job? Do you feel like you're working hard and putting in more hours, long hours, and maybe not getting the results that you need? Things like that. You know, don't be afraid to ask people. I remember I was always amazed with Oprah and her interview skills. And she said that every single person wants to know that they're being heard. They want to be seen. They want to be listened to. And speaking of listening, I mentioned Richard Branson a few minutes ago. He never goes into a meeting with an agenda and with a prepared message for the meeting. He goes in with questions. And I thought, well, that's amazing. I would not have thought to do that, but I think I might give that a try next time we have a meeting. Because look how successful he is, right? It must work. Okay, so now we're going to get to the good stuff. So yes, we have a brain, but you actually have 3 brains. And so this is going to explain why we can't self-manage better, and our team can't self-manage better. So first up, I did a double click just like you did last week. First up is the robot brain. So the robot brain does everything on autopilot, and it's unconscious instinct. So it takes care of our housekeeping, our hunger, our breathing, our heart pumping, temperature response. Like, we don't even know what the robot brain is doing. As long as we're healthy, it just does what it's supposed to do, right? And so we don't have to think about it. It's automatic. It has one job and one job only. And can you guess what that is? Survival, absolutely. So thank goodness we have the robot brain, right? So the second part of your brain is the monkey brain. So the monkey brain is active and with you most of the day. And it's the emotional part of the brain. And so the monkey brain, early in human history, the emotions were not controlled. It's quite primitive. It's been there from the beginning is the point. And so it is very powerful. We think that we are under control, but this monkey brain is probably bothering you right now. You're probably thinking, I should have brought water, or should I brought coffee? Is it hot in here? I'm hungry. What am I going to eat for lunch? Why isn't Teresa here? We miss her pretty face. That's what the shiny squirrel syndrome. That's what happens all day long, and it takes us off course, right? And so the good part about the monkey brain is this is why and how we're able to fall in love. And so it's also the one that freaks out when they tell you a week before your speech that you have to be videoed, right? That, a little bit of that going on. So just thought I would add that. So it's the one that gets all excited when Netflix puts, what was that show? Tiger King. That was, everybody went crazy, right, in 2020? That was all monkey brain. And it chases the shiny squirrels. It wants to know what's new, what is going on. It's pleasure seeking. It wants fun and adventure. And this is the toddler that lives in all of us, right? And next up is the sage brain. So the sage brain is the one that makes us distinctly human. This is the one that got you here this morning, the sage brain, because it knew this was a good place for you to be. And so it distinguishes humans from the animal kingdom, our sage brain. And it has special interactions. It does advanced planning. When you get ready for a trip and you're so detail-oriented, that's your sage brain. Can you imagine if the monkey brain packed your suitcase? It might not be such a good trip. My daughters just went to Japan, and they had some trouble. And when I was studying this, this is why. My daughter, my youngest daughter, was very much over-planning. Everything was planned. My oldest daughter, monkey. She didn't want to plan anything. Her idea of a good trip is to just get up and walk through town. Find a coffee spot, find a lunch spot. My other daughter planned every 30 minutes. So they ended up separating for about a day and a half to 2 days, which freaked me out. My monkey brain went crazy because I'm like, they're alone walking around in Japan by themselves? Are they crazy? That's why. So I will have to teach them this. So how do we, now that we know this, how do we navigate a little bit better? So what is going on? So right now, I would like to tell you that 95% of what we do every day, all day, is controlled by the robot. We don't even have to think about it. I mean, can you imagine if we had to think about breathing? We wouldn't get anything done all day. 5% is the monkey. I mean, he's always with us and he's speaking to us. Maybe it's a female monkey, I don't know. And we have to tamp that down. But you can see by the dots, the monkey is trying to overpower the sage brain. We don't even know that's going on till now, right? So all three are activated at all times. And so what we need to do is learn how to create new habits, because once the habit is created, the robot takes it over. And then we don't have to think about that anymore. So I have a habit. I didn't think about it till last week. Every day I come home from work, put the dog out, feed the cat, get an apple, get some almonds, go in the living room, and my dog and I have apple snack. And that is pretty much every day, 365 days a year. Even I have it when I don't go to work. And that's a good habit. Well, I wish that I didn't have the bad habits that the robot has on autopilot, right? So I wanted to let you know there's a wonderful book called The Power of Habit. And I mean, that could be a 2-hour workshop on habits, because it's just very interesting and informative when we start to learn how are these habits formed. I mean, you hear things that a habit is formed if you do something 21 times. Then other people will say, no, it really takes 3 months for a habit. Then I heard another one that it takes 210 days for a habit. I don't know the answer to that. I just know that the book teaches about the process. So if you're fortunate enough to form a good habit, like apple snack, and as long as I keep doing it, The robot brain will keep doing it. But if I one day decided it's going to be chocolate snap or snack, and I did that enough times, robot brain is going to now say, oh, we're doing chocolate snack every day after work. And so here's the problem. It's okay when it's a good habit. The apple snack is still in the system, and you can rejuvenate it. But it's harder. Once you break the habit, it's harder to bring the good habit back. That's why when people are exercising and they change their habits and they're doing well and they're doing well and they're doing well, and then something happens, they get knocked off course. It could be a long vacation, it could be an illness, it could be a number of things, and they stop exercising. They have a very hard time quite often getting back into the habit because the robot brain is like, we're not exercising anymore. So you have to know how to navigate through that and do the battle to get back to the habit. So that's why I wanted to tell you about the book, because if that's something that you're interested in, I highly recommend it. It was very eye-opening and informative. So let's talk about who's running the show most of the time. It is the robot brain, and we can use that to our advantage. And so I think one of the things I would like to point out is, have you ever had that experience where you're driving your car and you just don't even know how you got home? Like you don't remember going past the park or the church or whatever that landmark is. That's because of the robot brain. And so these are the 7 habits. These are the things that we're going to move on to next. And I guess I would like to, I probably should back up and just talk a little bit more about the monkey, because he gives us a hard time. So this is what happens to our team at work too. So they might be doing something and the monkey is like, oh, I wonder what's on the news right now. What are Harry and Meghan doing? You know, it's true. That's a big thing now. Because this is coming at us all the time. And that is explaining the problem with the technology. It's always speaking to us. It's teasing us all day. Pick me up. Look at me. It's taunting us. Check your messages. You know, the statistic about checking the mail, the email, when you don't even get a notification, that kind of blew my mind. And I thought, if you go back to the olden days, that would be like somebody running out to the mailbox 40 times. Just because, just to see, is there any mail now? Even though the mailman hadn't come. And that's what we've been reduced to because it's so addictive. And so the first job is to create the winning habits, turn them over to the robot brain. And the second job is to rein in that monkey. So we're going to try to talk about how do we do that. And we're going to mostly talk about that in terms of the technology problem. And then the third is to create an environment so that it's safe and welcoming for the sage brain to come out and help us out. And so when that sage brain comes out, he has a voice, he can get our attention, and there's a creative space in which we can all flourish if we can utilize our sage brain more often. Bill, you were not kidding. I am never this thirsty. He said it's going to be all day. We have to drink a lot of water today. So that's our job, to understand what's going on inside of our mind. Now, do you have any questions? Do you feel like this was new information that you weren't aware of?
I think the way that you brought it together has put new connections for me.
Good. Thank you. That's a very,
Like,
very nice compliment.
Like putting that new habit into autopilot and trying to get some of the stuff going on in there.
Yeah. Yeah, now that you know that, maybe it'll help you motivate yourself, inspire you to stick it out, kind of soldier through.
Yeah. I think
That's
so.
good. I like that. Anybody else?
A good habit's tough to establish, but easy to break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the truth. Okay, so we have to protect the time and attention for the sage. So the sage brain can be your superpower. And the sage is your ability to superachieve. So I never thought about that till right now. Vince has Yoda in his system, right? Because he is so consistent and he's always sage brain. That is Yoda, right? Is that his name? Okay. So the sage, utilizing the sage is how we get into quadrant 4. That's how we can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. And I don't want it to always sound like it's about money, because not everything's about money, right? There's other achievements that are far superior than money. So here's the next part of what we're going to talk about. These are the 7 habits and different things that help us with our staff. Personal development is huge, praise and recognition, systems, routines. So first up is Sunday planning. Now that could be a whole lesson too. So I want to bring your attention to the YouTube Sunday planning system. If you look for Darren Hardy, this is the system that he teaches. An older gentleman taught him. It's about an hour, I think, maybe no more than an hour and 10 minutes. And this is all he uses every week. And that man has a lot of achievements, let me tell you. Books, classes, he's very prolific. What you learn is the to-do list that most of us use. Do you all utilize making a to-do list? I know I always did. That is not the best way to organize what we need to do to achieve and do what we want to do. So his point is, and Mike, you said it the other day about having 3 priorities. So his point is to choose 3 big priorities at the beginning of each year. And then you utilize something that gives you the ability to have 4 boxes, 4 quadrants. This isn't big enough for me. I like to write things out. I mean, I'm old-fashioned. I did everything by hand. It sinks into my brain better. That makes my sage brain so happy when I write it down and it's color coordinated. I'm not really a nerd, but for me, I learn better when I write and when I speak it and when I hear it. I've got to cover all 3 bases. So I use a little journal, and each page is 1, 2, 3 for priority. So what you do after you choose your priority, then you just, what do they call it, a brain dump, and you write all the little pieces that have to happen for that thing to be done, for it to be completed. So I don't know if I can think of an example. Like if a big priority was to make chocolate chip cookies, easy enough to imagine. You have to have the recipe, you have to have the ingredients, you have to have the oven at the right temperature. You would put every single little step. And what that does, it makes it easy. Because maybe you're not going to do all of them in one day. I mean, we're talking big habits. So I don't know, do you have a big project that's coming up for the chamber, Jennifer?
Well, tonight's the biggest thing happening.
That's a good
until the end
example.
of the year.
Yeah, so that's not anything you could do in a day. So if you have the big priorities, you have all 3 and you have them listed, and you're going to adjust it. You're going to cross things off and other things are going to present. And so that's what you spend your time most on. Now the 4th category, this is titled miscellaneous. Darren Hardy is a devout Catholic. He calls it the devil's vortex. So I like to call it the rabbit hole. It doesn't bother me calling it the devil's vortex, because some of what we do, is not really, we waste our time on things we really shouldn't be doing, right? But his point is to work on the priorities first. You are going to have to do some of the things in the rabbit hole, but get the big stuff done first. And so one of the next tips will feed into well, how do you organize yourself so you can efficiently and in a speedier way accomplish the priorities? And then at the bottom, they say your most valuable priorities of the week. And that can be, anything. It will be different for everyone, of course. So do you have any questions about that? I know it's a very quick explanation, but it is a fascinating system. And I will say, when I first started using it, I wasn't doing it correctly for probably close to a year. It was definitely helpful. I was like, for every week I say to myself, I want 2 listings. So that was a priority every week. And then the other ones changed. But that was too small. That was just a to-do thing. That was part of the bigger priority, which has to do with, being financially secure, right? That feeds the income. So one of my teammates, not teammates, huddle mates, taught me that I had it wrong. It was too small. So I had to change the way I was doing it, and I've been doing it correctly for about 4 months. It really has changed. I feel like I'm getting bigger projects done more easily, and I'm very happy about that because being a new business owner, I had a lot of stuff to do that's not fun, like paperwork and filing things, and I'm working with the SBA and business planning and all that, just a lot of stuff. So this system I've seen it work with my huddle mates in a major way, and it's helped me quite a bit.
Do you
So
actually do it on Sunday?
I do. I did my week plan. I do the whole week, and I've done it on Sunday for years because I went to a time management program years ago, back in the 90s, and that was what the speaker recommended. So I've just always done that. And when you get good at it, get used to it, you can do it in 15 to 20 minutes. It's not a big deal. But if I don't take the time to do it, then I just kind of feel lost, that week. And sometimes I'll put, like, Tuesday morning, okay, you need to do this. This isn't going to be a productive week. So, Mike, you'll like this slide. Oh, not that one. Oh, Jennifer, I'm having the there. Yeah, I was overzealous. If you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any, right? And so that's what happens with the to-do list. You're giving everything equal space in your little world. And, taking the trash out or whatever, that in no way should be on the same list as the priorities.
If you do deep research in this, you'll find all this that you're talking about. Goes back to a gentleman by the name of Hiram Smith. And his work set the foundation for what was the Franklin Day Plan.
Oh, I had one of
I did
those.
too.
Oh, I loved it.
Planner
I
is
did
now the
too.
Franklin Covey system, and actually what they have now is not as valuable to me as what it used to be. And I've been using that for 40-some years now.
So you still use a Franklin planner?
And that forces you to look at your to-do list
Yeah.
in terms of A, B, and C. What do you have to do today or something bad happens?
Mm.
What do you need to do today, but if you don't, nothing bad happens? And what would you like to do today, but if you don't get to it, it doesn't matter.
I like
again,
that
I don't
too.
know everything you're drawing toward, but it goes back to the 1940s work of Hiram Smith.
Where do you
Okay.
get that Franklin planner? I didn't even know they made them anymore.
It's an online instrument now. I don't
Okay.
find it
Oh.
as
Oh, it's online?
valuable.
Yeah, I have to do mine in pencil. Because in my world, and probably yours too, being in insurance, you can set out your appointments and then somebody cancels, they want to reschedule, whatever, and I'm erasing. I don't do it in pen. If the minute I put it in pen.
There is a delete button on these computers.
I know, but once again, my sage brain is happy with paper.
Yeah,
Well, there's something
So-
about the writing. Of
Yes.
The handwriting.
well, that's Hiram Smith's fundamental premise, is you have a to-do list, you write it down, all of a sudden you've done something that wasn't on the list, but it was important to do. You usually put it onto the
Write
list
it down
and
and
you
check it
cross it out,
Right.
because there's an exhilaration about crossing it out. You go to urgent and
That's
so forth.
true.
Urgent is the phone ringing. You
Yeah.
have to answer it. You don't answer the phone if it's not ringing.
Right.
So-
I've got this issue with multiple to-do lists.
Yeah.
I've got 2 different papers that I've written on and just kept going with that.
Yeah,
If I've got a Word file open I'm working on, I start a new file. If something
Yeah.
comes up and I start to do on that, I leave it open until I get it done. You know, then I add the next thing onto that, and the next thing onto that. Now I've got this new Word file to-do list when I had already made one. I've got 2 Excel spreadsheets that I'm working on.
Color code.
And I'm also trying to get everything into our management system. You know, everything that's got to do with a specific client, I can usually get it into the management system and set a to-do for myself in there. But just all over the place. Some things are repeated on different lists.
so I have
That
to,
would be insane. I
So it's too much.
couldn't do that.
Jason, I have to give you some grace, okay? So you're a creative person, you're an artist, and I'm a creative person. I'm not an artist, but I'm a creative person. And our brains are much different than like an accountant or an engineer. So that's a battle that we fight all the time. I hope the audio picked up what you just said, because that was such a good thing to bring to light this morning. So yes, we have to get some things over to the robot and try to be disciplined to have one place where you do something. You have to fight it. It's not, this is hard stuff. I haven't said that yet this morning. It's easy to talk about it. It's funny sometimes to talk about it. It is so hard to make changes like this. So make one change at a time is my advice. It's just impossible to go, I'm going to change everything.
Well, 2 things I'm doing now are unsubscribing from emails
Oh, yeah.
that flood my inbox
Uh-huh.
and practicing. Well, we're working on the time management thing as well, and the 2-minute rule they're talking about. If it takes 2 minutes, just do it. Just do it and get it done with. If it's going to take more than 2 minutes, bring it over into our management system, the way we're working, and set a task for yourself, set a reminder for yourself to get it done.
I'm going to repeat that. So Jason just shared a 2-minute rule. So if something takes 2 minutes to do, you do it right away, you just get it done. And if it takes more than 2 minutes, you set it aside for a later time?
Yeah, you set up, in our management system, we can drag it and drop it in.
Okay.
And put a to-do note on it.
Great.
So now it's on your to-do list.
I like that. I might have to steal that.
In the same book, it has the piece about the 1-year rule. Will this matter a year from now if you bother doing it or not?
That's a good one too. So Mike just shared, will this matter? If you ask yourself if this will matter in a year, then you don't do it if it won't matter, or you just don't make it a priority.
Or if you don't do it, will it matter?
Oh, if you don't do it, will it matter? Okay.
So it works both ways.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the jam session. Jam sessions are great. Hard to get used to doing it because you close down and shut off the calculator. No computer, phone's on silent. Better it's not even in the room with you, because the phone taunts us, teases us. The monkey wants to go pick up the phone. And you set aside 90 minutes. Now, if that's too much for your schedule, start with 30, start with 60. 90 minutes, good solid hour and a half. That's a nice amount of time. You can take it as far as you know, not needing to get up and walk around too much. But you just work on one priority, one thing for 90 minutes. Now, Darren Hardy, I think he is a robot. He gets up in the morning, I think I read like 5 a.m., and he has a jam session from like 5:30 to whatever before he even gets out of his pajamas. Then he does his thing in the morning, gets to work, he does another jam session. So if you remember, I said how prolific he is with his materials. That's why he gets 90 minutes times 2 every day. I think he's doing it 6 days a week to create and not be interrupted. So he's not losing those 23 minutes with distractions. Now he has a full staff. He has an A team, They're taking the phone calls. They're answering the email. It's not like his customers are being ignored, but he's doing what is his highest and best, his vital function. That's what he's doing. And so that is a really good tool. And I try to do 2 jam sessions a week now. I do one on a weekend, though. It's hard for me to block out 90 minutes. You know, I just have a lot of people to answer to. But I can usually get one in on a Tuesday morning. It's pretty quiet. So we're going to now talk about bookends. And these are the things you do as part of your morning routine and things that you do as part of your evening routine. Now, we all have routines, whether they're consistent or not is another issue, whether they're healthy or not, whether they, you know, are diminishing your life or adding to your life. You know, we all have these routines. So the idea is for the bookends to be as healthy and as good and, you know, to help us to have a higher quality of life. So that's why I wanted to bring your attention to Andrew Huberman. He is a neuroscientist with, I think it's Stanford University or USC, one of the two. And he has a wonderful podcast. He has some books. He is brilliant. And what I like about him is he takes the time on YouTube to really teach. So it's like attending a college class. Some of his, I look at the title and I really want to listen to that one. And it's 2 hours long. So I kind of look for the ones that I can manage right now. But he has such good ideas, suggestions based on research. So for instance, one of the things that he suggests in the morning routine is to go outside and get sunlight for just 2 minutes. You don't have to stand in the sunlight, but get it into your retina for 2 minutes. And supposedly, you'll sleep better at night if you do that. And then there's one where if you just exercise for 5 minutes in the morning, you'll sleep better at night. So that's what I just encourage you to explore if you can, if you have time, because he's really smart and it's fascinating the things that they really know about the body and the brain and all the systems that we have and the different little changes you can make. And then some of them are major changes, but there's a lot of little things that we can change and that would help us to have more productive days, I'll say, more enjoyable days too. So I liked this because I don't know why, but the hands made me, it kind of felt like a spiritual thing to me, but I thought it was a cute picture of the bookends. And I don't know, you know, I can't speak for you, I don't know your habits or whatnot, but it doesn't have to be anything difficult. So here I am with paper. So I have my AM bookends and I have my PM bookends, and all I do is just switch it out. I'm not perfect. There's someone here that I don't even know if I've done once yet, but it's something I strive to do, just to be healthier and have a better quality of life. Does anyone have anything you want to add? Any questions?
Again, going back to the work of Hiram Smith, it was founded upon Ben Franklin's work. Ben Franklin had 14 virtues that he would pursue, and he'd do it over 2 weeks. So there would be one day it is virtue of honesty, another day virtue of reverence, another day. 14th was humility, and he decided he couldn't handle that, so he went down to 13. I've kind of brought it down to 7, and I try and look at that at the end of each day.
Ah, that's cool.
I hit the 7, and they're pretty simple: patience, compassion, honesty, integrity, forgiveness, love, and reverence. And I just, okay, what did I do today to demonstrate that? Sometimes it's a void, and that's not a good feeling at the end of the day, that, you know, you really didn't do anything to demonstrate X on that given day. But it gets your bookend.
Yeah,
I like
and I love Ben Franklin. He would be the one, you know that question they ask you, who would you like to sit and have lunch with? I've just always liked Ben Franklin for some reason. Okay, so now we're going to talk about something that's called 1-5-3 5-3-1-1 campaign. And this really spoke to me the first time I heard about it. It's 1 goal, 1 skill, 5 books, 3 audio, and 1 seminar. And the way this was utilized by the person who taught it was a way to get his team engaged. So it wasn't really a competition, but it was, they were invited to come up with a plan of what did they want to learn. What goal did they have? What skill did his staff want to learn? And they had to present to him. And the deal that he made with them, because you know, if people have, if they have some skin in the game, they have ownership, right? So they paid for 20%, and he covered 80%. And the deal was that when they finished this, they then had to teach what they learned to the whole company, which I loved, because then it's taking the pressure off the team leader of always having to be the trainer or the teacher. So I'm going to do this next year in the office. I know not everyone's going to come to me with a plan. Maybe only 2 or 3 people will. But I'm kind of excited about it. I mean, I just feel like it's such a brilliant idea, you know. So the point is that we have to sow the seeds first. The seed comes before the harvest, right? And I felt like that program, the 15311, would sow a lot of seeds. I just think it's really cool. And I felt like that is a major way to get people excited, motivated, and engaged. I keep saying engaged today, but that's a good word. So now we're going to move on to team initiatives as a way to get your staff involved. And you probably have ideas, which I would love to hear too. I'll just mention some of the ones that I know of. I haven't done this. I've wanted to do it. It sounds like so much fun. It's called Steak and Beans. And this works very well in a setting that you have like production goals or sales goals or something like that. So you divide the staff into, 2 teams, making sure you don't put all the high earners on one team. You try to evenly divide it. And then you have like maybe a 30-day or a 45-day time frame, and whatever it is. Let's say in real estate it's to get listings. Maybe in insurance it's to write policies, or if it's greeting cards to, I do have a person in my huddle she makes handmade beautiful greeting cards. Maybe it would be to see who can make the most cards. I don't know what it could be anything. But whatever team wins, the losing team has to cook them a steak dinner and serve them the steak dinner, and the losing team has to eat beans. And I just think that's the funniest thing. So I might try that. Can you imagine? I mean, would you work hard? You're not going to want to eat the beans, right? So in our office, everybody would want Vince on their team. That's the problem. It might be lopsided.
And you have a kitchen in your office.
We do, and I want to have another chamber event so we can have a cooked breakfast like Joe did that time.
That was great.
Yeah. So the next one that I will tell you about today is called All for One. People like to have a fight. Now, it can be a fight for a good cause, like we like to have the Alex's Lemonade stand. It can be a fight against maybe a competitor. I'm not saying you're going to go out and pick it or anything crazy like that. It can be an internal message. So in our business, it could be, we want to knock this other realtor off the perch. Maybe we want to try to get more listings than they have. And so the theory is that everybody gets excited because now it's a team effort and you have some cause. I always think about the Eagles, the year they were the underdogs, and they would tap that, whatever that sign said in the locker room. I don't remember what it was, but I remember hearing Jason Kelsey talk about it. And then last season, unfortunately, they weren't underdogs. Everybody built them up and said, oh, they're going to win, and they didn't win because they didn't have that fight, right? That's what you need, the fight, and it brings out the competitive and the energy and, just that force. It brings it out in people. The next one is just a sales goal, but it's for the whole office. So something big happens for everyone. I heard a story about a production goal for an educational company. They were selling books and training things and whatnot. And if they made their goal, everyone would go on a cruise. It was a major goal. And that way, everybody wins. And then the next one would be to understand and share the individual teammates' big whys. Why is Jennifer working so hard at the chamber? What is it? Is it vacation? Is it to provide for her daughter and herself? Is it whatever it is? What is your big why? What is mine? And that way, maybe I would work harder because I want to help you get to your big why. If everyone understands where they're coming from, maybe somebody's paying for college, maybe someone is taking care of their parents, maybe someone has a big anniversary and they want to go to Hawaii. So you might work a little harder if you knew that you could help that person get to Hawaii or take care of their father. And so do you have any suggestions in your worlds of things that bring out the best and get the juices going with the team? Have you ever tried anything like that?
I use a video by Michael Jr., he's a comedian, and he does a 4-minute video. It's a clip out of his routine, but it is about your why. And once you understand your why, the what falls into place.
Mm.
And it's very profound, and I think that understanding someone else's why is probably every bit as important as understanding your own.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they there? It might be just because they need to feed a family.
Yeah.
And they won't have the same motivation as someone who's trying to build a business. Sometimes it's not about the money, it's about the effort and the legacy and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Now we're going to come to the fun part. Okay. You can take your tests out of your folder. It doesn't take long. And it is the digital assessment test. And I did bring extra copies, so if you want to take some back to your offices to test your staff, test your family, I think you will want to do that. If you remember, I talked about the cost of the office meetings. So this is how we fix it a little bit, It's called the 3 B's. Be brief, be bold, and be brilliant. And you can go so far as to tell people, like we do in the Chamber of Commerce meetings now, that you have 2 minutes, you have 10 minutes, limit them. So I have we call it a huddle, it's a mastermind group on every other Friday morning. And the gentleman that leads the group made a plan of how many minutes we get. And so he kind of gives us a 2-minute warning, Jason, and he does a little, so even though he's on mute, we know, okay, we have to wrap it up. And it really does make for a more effective meeting. And so that's it. I mean, you just have to tell people what your boundaries are and then hold to it. Now that you saw that the meetings cost, what was it, $6,900 a year just for one meeting? Okay, so this brings me to, I wanted to share some success stories with you. And when I first started to map out my outline, I was going to talk about some people who really have big businesses. There's a guy named Sid Packett in London, and he has 300 employees, and he used some of these techniques. And I thought, I think it might be better, more productive, and more inspiring to just hear about regular people and what they're doing. So this is my Thursday night at 7 huddle every week. We all took a year-long course called The Hero's Journey, and we were fortunate enough to just organically be in the group. There were 14 people that started. It reduced down to 8, and we have remained together since 2021. And it is just one of the highlights of my week. I show up for them, and they show up for me pretty much every week. It's very rare. Now, I told them I'm going to be late tonight because of the event, you know. So I decided to go right within my huddle to tell you about these folks and what they've accomplished by making some of these changes. So this is Brian. He was a crackhead on the on the assessment. So when Brian and we started huddling, he did not have a YouTube channel. We took a class on business mastery, and it sparked his interest. He shared that he didn't think he looked good on video. He didn't think he would sound good. Who would watch him? Who would follow? Very insecure. But he decided to do it. So he made one video a week for a couple of months. And then he started to get more followers. And long story short, he's up to about 700 followers. He routinely gets leads. The first lead he had, I think he said the commission earnings have been almost $45,000 to date now from his channel. So now he started a second channel. He recruited his son-in-law into real estate, and this one is on Charlotte, North Carolina, and the next one is just on new construction. And so this was just him setting the priority and having the jam sessions and getting it going. And now it's just on autopilot. And it's a tremendous influx of money into his business. This is Lori. She's a CPA in Canada. So that's her new office. For 3 years, we have been listening to this. I would never want to do business in Canada, by the way. They have put her through terrible, I won't say the word, weird construction requirements. Like she had to put a concrete walls around the building. It was a stucco building, and she had to complete, and then she had to do a retaining wall. Now there was something with the electric. So 3 years and over $100,000 in unexpected renovation fees. And I have watched her stay the course, stay calm. I mean, it is just amazing what she has accomplished. She took this building that was run down. I think she told us that she paid, I'm going to say $300,000 for this building. And because of her efforts and her ability to stay the course and finalize this priority, it's now worth in excess of $1 million. Wow. But what I most want to tell you about her is she prepares taxes, right? She's a CPA. She's been doing it so long, she hates it. She likes the business, but she wants to rise above and be the leader and bring in more accountants underneath of her. So she needed to make the leap, scary leap, of not doing the taxes anymore and being in a different role. And she accomplished that this year. Their tax season is horrific. They do not get extensions in Canada. I don't know how the people function, but she did not prepare one tax return, and I have to give her major kudos because that's a hard shift for a business owner to make. And then this is Patricia. She was a stay-at-home mom. Her husband got sick. They were renters. She had to come up with a business, and she had to become the breadwinner of the family very quickly. So in 21, she just started what she calls vacation, desert vacation rentals. So she helps people who have Airbnbs who don't want to do the grunt work. She advertises, she gets the tenants, they sign the paperwork. She has the cleaning staff. She takes the pictures and does the marketing. She has an Instagram. And she set this crazy high goal this year, and she reached it before we were even out of the third quarter. And now she is taking care of her husband, and they just bought a new car. So that's phenomenal. And she put the practices that we've talked about today in order. And she actually took some major changes in technology with the social media, like backed way off of Facebook and things like that. And then the last one I'm going to tell you about is Sajith. And you can see he had a 100-day health challenge. He turned 40 in April, and he was heavier. He had bad cholesterol. He had high blood pressure. He was not exercising. So he took the lesson about the robot brain, and he got these good habits going, and he lost 22 pounds, and his goal was to have a good blood test with good test results, and he made it. He's a Google engineer. Wonderful job. Wonderful. He's the person who heads up our huddle with those. So now his dream is to leave Google and be an entrepreneur. He wants to be a motivational speaker. He wants to blog. He wants to write. He wants to coach. And he has set himself up with a goal that he will do that next year. I mean, he is so focused on his goals and hitting his priorities. It's amazing to watch him. And now we're back to home. And so, if you'll humor me, I wrote something last night. And I'm just going to read it because there's no way I could memorize. I wish I could memorize like that, be like an actress and just memorize it. Okay, so I want to finish with this. Please understand, success isn't achieving a goal somewhere out there in the distant future. You are successful when you do the right things today and every day, day to day. We have this special day ahead of us now, and it comes with hopefully a new mindset, new ideas, a new opportunity to make a real difference. I want to remind you one more time of who you are. You are all leaders. You have a wonderful opportunity and the potential to influence so many people for good. You can create meaningful conversations with others. You can add value. You can offer hope to others. You have the ability to change lives by your words, by your actions, and by your example, based on how you show up and how you grow through your self-mastery, through your personal development, and with your work experiences. You can encourage your team to grow through self-mastery. I don't think that I'm being too dramatic by saying that you can impact people not only in this lifetime, but honestly in the generations to come. If you do the work for yourself, on yourself, as you travel through this life, the ripple effect can easily impact those generations. So this is your journey, and I encourage you to play full out, give it your whole heart and your whole attention, and it will pay off for you, and it will pay off for your team, your family, and your friends. And I'm going to repeat again, the generations to come. So now we're back where we started. And I just want to ask you, do we think that these 14 founders had any idea that the Chamber would still be here in 2023? Do we think the founders believed that their small group would grow to be almost 400 strong and be such a big organization? So now, as I said earlier, oftentimes the small thing is actually a very big thing. I mean, it is a big thing that they did, right? So tomorrow, I want you, when you're looking in the mirror and you're brushing your teeth, hopefully you have not checked your cell phone before you brush your teeth. Remember that you guys are the exception. You know not only what is possible, you know that you can be better at every day, and you can encourage your tribe to study personal development and take on their own journey of self-mastery and hopefully try to become better every day as well. And so you have the opportunity to take these 7 habits and these tips, use them for yourself, share them with others, and help them to learn what to focus on. And history can and often does repeat itself. So we are seeing quite clearly today that a small thing can become a big thing and can actually become a big important thing. And then the last questions today are, what will your legacy be in 80 years? Have you ever thought of that? And how can you impact generations to come? What changes can you make? We have this wonderful example right in front of us today. So what changes can you make that could potentially leave a pretty darn good legacy for yourself and for your business and for your families. And on that note, I just really want to say thank you. This was hard, but good. It made me work. It made me stretch. Of course, it's a dachshund, right? And here's my contact information. And I appreciate the opportunity very much, and I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed it.